I think the first moment I really realized it was what I wanted to do professionally was in middle school when I had to choose between chorus and studying drama at the school I was in London. And deciding that I wanted to focus on acting more than voice necessarily was a turning point for me. So yeah.
And you're obviously a singer as well too. Let's talk about your musical theater chops, because I know that you're a huge aficionado when it comes to musical theater. Was that where the love all started?
Oh, I like to think that I came out belting, you know? I think we all did, right? It was a scream or is it a belt? Who knows? But you know, I think it's really where my heart is. My heart is in theater, and thankfully that really translates to film and television. But I I really think just that discipline that I found in the theater and love of craft, training and doing performances on stage, it's served me big time. So I hope to go back to musical theater for sure.
And do you notice a lot of differences, not necessarily in the audition process, but in the actual act of acting? Do you notice any type of differences when you're on camera or when you're actually on film? Do you feel any different? Is there any, or is it just acting is acting is acting?
Oh, so I love that you asked this question because something you'll hear sometimes that I wish everyone could just eradicate is if someone doesn't know what to say. I think this is, and again, what I'll say at the start is that this is just all my 2 cents. Take the best, leave the rest. But I think sometimes people will say, you know, theater's big to the back of the house. Film and TV is very small. And I hope no one walks around their lives thinking like, I'm going to connect with this person, but I'm going to be very small about it because they're right in front of me. Like we don't scale human emotion, right? We're just living our lives. You're all fully embodied in this moment. So while it might be a different physicality and you might be projecting differently on stage, you're still a fully embodied human, right? So while the scale is different, the embodiment is the same. So I like to think like, if Larry's right in front of me, I'm not going to be screaming at him, but it's just knowing my proximity, right? But it doesn't mean I do any less prep or any less um living in that character's skin. So I hope that makes sense.
Mm. Now, in my career as a casting director, I've had a wonderful opportunity as well to work with Tyler Perry, actually on 5 or 6 different films that he's worked on. And
Wow.
you had the opportunity to work with him as well. And I'm wondering if you experienced the same thing that I did.
Ooh.
His overwhelming, generous desire to not only create perfect art,
Mm.
but to do it in a way that is respectful to everyone that he works with. And I found it amazing because I've worked with a lot of people in this town, and
Mm.
working with him, it almost feels as if when you're talking with Tyler, you're talking with somebody that kind of works for him.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Did you
I love
experience that same thing?
I I just want to start by saying like he is definitely an idol for me. The human being that he is in the world, in addition to the art he creates and his passion and his drive and what he's built, like he's a definitely an icon for me. Um, I feel like when he talks to you, you're the only person he's talking to, and he just cares so deeply and is so driven and is so um he's fully living his purpose. And I just loved it. Like, if you can see it, you can be it, right? So to see someone fully walking in their purpose and giving back, during COVID, he would go to Kroger, which is a grocery store in Atlanta, and buy groceries for the seniors who were shopping because they were high risk, like very early in the morning. He'd just go and like didn't publicize that. People would just find out. So when someone can fully walk in their purpose and then also prioritizes giving back and being a good human in the world, like that's the kind of artist I want to be.
Hmm. And when you first started in the business, a lot of young actors sort of have I guess it's a 12-year-old, mentality that we all have. Well, if I'm going to be a doctor, I have to be the best doctor on the planet. If I'm going to be a lawyer, I got to be the best lawyer. If I'm going to be an actor, that must mean that in order for me to be the best actor, I have to be rich and famous. So many young actors get into this business believing that, and then end up becoming disappointed. What advice would you give any young actor who believes that's the only version of success? Do you believe that?
I'm like gonna get choked up. I love that question so much. I love that you ask it. Because I love this business so much. And I wish there had been more, like, I'm just so moved that you asked that, because I wish there had been more talk when I was younger about the value of being an artist and loving what you do. There was 5 years ago, I was a preschool teacher full time and I was doing community theater. And the moments that I had on that stage, I'll live for forever. Like, it was me saying, okay, I took a break. I'm teaching children, but you know what? I love this. I have to find a way to always do this. I can't live without it. And that, to me, you're as much an artist when you're on a stage doing community theater as you are if you're on a big fancy film set. It's different circumstances, but you can see people and we hear this all the time, with all the fame, with all the accolades, who are not fulfilled, who are not, aligned. They're not living their values, right? So I think truly health and happiness and being fulfilled is success, right? So I'm someone who, I love to live below my means. Like, fancy things are not important to me. Being a good human and doing the thing I love and then encouraging others is the priority for me. So, my credits aren't going to be on my tombstone, right? So I'm not worried about being rich and famous.
Words of wisdom. And as well, too, kind of along those same lines, actors will say, well, I'll go to New York and I'll try to get on Broadway. If I'm not on Broadway in 5 years, it wasn't meant to be. I'll go to LA. I'll try to be in a big time movie. If it doesn't happen in 10 years, I guess it wasn't meant to be, without the reality of understanding that being an artist is not about tomorrow. It's not about yesterday. It's about being in that moment, and it's about living that journey. That is the purpose of this series, because when we are able to sustain a career like Betty White, we are all successful. And for every young actor, I would think that the only version of success that you should ever have is, at the end of that month, when the landlord comes a knocking, can you say, I'm paying my rent this month with money that I made as an actor? If you can, you're successful. Don't ever forget that. Now, let's talk a little bit about the differences between working in film and working in television. I remember back, obviously, in the 80s and the 90s, the 3-camera sitcoms, it was all sort of, fairly rigid. These days, they're not shooting television like that. When you see, Walking Dead, Ozark, when you see some of these incredible television series, it's almost as if you're watching a 200-hour-long film. Do you notice any differences between schedules, between rehearsals, between any of those things, or is it almost identical at this point?
Wow, I love that you asked that question, because again, the discipline that you learn in doing theater, in taking class, in, all the behind the scenes work that actors do to prepare for the job really serves you when you're working on a show that is shot out of order. So you're watching Walking Dead sequentially, right? But they're not shooting necessarily episode 1, then moving on to episode 2, moving on to episode 3. So you as an actor are and this is true in film too, but you're mapping out your character arc, you're mapping out, and the scenes that you pick up in class, and you're going, okay, what's my objective? What beats are in this scene is going to serve you when they rewrite a scene that you're doing the day of, right? Because you might know your character's overall arc, but okay, now we're in episode 3 and we're jumping to episode 5. And so I think that organization and discipline to be able to and preparation to really know your character and to be able to take direction is really key. But yeah, I think we are watching. I love that you said that. We are watching a 200-hour movie. It's very funny.
And talk a little bit about A Jazz Band Blues. What is, for those of you that haven't seen it, it's currently on Netflix, correct?
It is.
Tell us a little bit about the plot of the film.
Whew. So it's set in the 1930s, and then we jump to the 1940s, and then to the 1980s. And it is about a couple who, the female, played by Soleil Pfeiffer, is meets the lead, Joshua Boone's character Bayou, in the 1930s, and they fall in love. And for reasons that I won't give away, she moves away. They are later reunited. And when they are reunited, she's passing for white in the 1940s. And it is about their love story. And there's lots of obstacles that they face in that time period. And I'm one of those obstacles. And my character's name's Margaret. I call her Margaret the Monster, but don't tell anybody. I call her Margaret the Monster because she's a real monster.
And let's talk a little bit about your dialect as well too, which is night and day from hearing you speak now in comparison to that film. How much work did you do? And I'm assuming you may have had maybe a dialect coach on set or something. Talk a little bit about that.
So I'm a big nerd. I love preparation. I love coaching. Because if anyone ever tells you it's about the job that you're auditioning for, they're lying. You're always there to book that room. You are always there to learn the thing for the job you can't see yet. So if it's not an audition for that particular role, but rather like, oh, great, I'm auditioning for this role and I get to practice my dialect skills, great. Then I'm not focused on getting that job. So for that job in particular, I did hire a dialect coach who's wonderful. Her Instagram handle is Accent Colors. If any of you ever need a dialect coach, she's incredible. Her name's Paula. And she worked with me on the dialect. And then there was one that I had to let go of. I was like, Tyler Perry, special place in my heart. Really hope this works out. And then I heard like a month and a half later. It was wild. So I did work with a dialect coach. And then when I booked the role, prepared with my coach, my acting coach, and continued working with the dialect coach.
Yeah, it does take an incredible amount of work. And I'm assuming that work is something that whenever you've learned something, it's sort of like riding a bicycle. I remember when I worked in that film, I learned this, so I'm going to take that knowledge into this film.
Absolutely. And it's something that no one told me when I was younger that I wish they had, is 99.9% of this business can be dealing with personalities and energies. So just like you might be in class one day and someone's in a bad mood and you're like, okay, I'm not going to make this about me. I don't know what they're going through, right? I'm just going to show up with love and kindness and good energy. The same is true of a film set. So it's all practice. You might show up one day and a producer talks down to you or, has an unkind thing to say. And the next week, they just think you're the cat's meow. They absolutely love you. And none of it is personal, right? So as long as you know you're showing up, you're doing the work and have a good attitude and are kind and are a light on set, then that's your job. So what I like to tell myself is everything is training, right? So the classes you show up for, the auditions you show up for, it's all practice the energy you want to have on set. Because when you're on a set for 16 hours a day, right, it doesn't suddenly become like, oh, I have great energy all the time and this is so easy. It's like, no, we're filming at 4 a.m. and keeping a smile on your face and being a joy to be around it's practice, because it's a job. As much as it's a dream, it's a job, right? So
just like athletes, you play how you practice and you practice how you play.
Love that. Yes.
So okay, now for those of our guests here, feel free, if you have questions, go ahead, type those into our chat. I have just a couple of more questions because I know you guys are dying to ask some questions. Now, when we're young, we all had someone we looked up to, someone that we said, wow, that's great. This is what I want to do. For me, that was Jack Lemmon.
No.
Watching Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau work together was like watching absolute magic. Towards the end of this, I'm going to talk a little bit about my affinity for Jack Lemmon. But what mentor did you have? Who did you look up to and say, wow, I'd love to do something like that?
My acting teacher in high school. There are actors that I look up to, absolutely. But my acting teacher in high school said something that I really hang on to. He said, people will say, those who can't do teach. And he said, that's a lie. Cause he was a working actor living in London and
Mm,
he was from LA. And he said, those who can do teach because they want to pass their passion on.
correct.
And that to me, I was like, man, if I can be that kind of force in the world that I get to do the thing I love and say, okay, all those trials and tribulations, I didn't go through them for nothing. I went through them. So hopefully someone else's road can be a little bit easier. They can have a shoulder to lean on, right? So I he just really impacted how I see the business. He always said, remember the joy in the process, the joy in the process, the joy in the process. And that is something I've always carried with me. And I've always wanted to be a big champion and encourager for other artists.
Mm,
So in terms of mentoring, he was a huge mentor for me. But, you know, in terms of actors, I remember just sitting front row I would student rush shows. I would go see shows with my mom as a kid and just sitting there weeping, being like, I'm an emotional person, but I just like the overture starts when I see a musical and I'm already like tearing up, right? And I remember watching, being like, I wonder if they know how lucky they are to get to do the thing they love. So I think just seeing artists who are doing it has always really inspired me because, it's people tell you all the time, it's such a hard business. It's not easy. And I think it, you can really find joy based on what your perspective is, right?
mm,
So if you believe this is the hardest business there is and it will take it out of you and you'll find evidence for that. But if you believe that you're meant to do this and that you're not in charge of the timing, you're not in charge of when it works out, but you are in charge of your attitude, how you treat others and what you're willing to learn, then I think you can find a lot more joy than I knew how to look for when I was younger. So that's why I'm adamant about saying it because I kind of bought into a long time of that like starving artist, struggling artist mentality of like, this is so hard versus, okay, how can I set myself up to enjoy this and not let my happiness be dependent on the outcome? So
mm.
hope that makes
Ooh,
sense.
you made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up on that one.
Oh, good, Chris.
All right, so let's go ahead and open this up to some questions. Hannah Lendman's got a great question. Hannah, you want to go ahead and open up your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, I just sent two actually. So,
This was in the words of encouragement.
Oh.
okay. So what advice or words of encouragement would you have for actors who are suffering imposter syndrome from being in a drier period of not booking anything?
Oh, I love this question. So I mean this in the most encouraging way ever. It never goes away. You just get really good at dealing with it. So what I like to say is like my bounce back time is impressive now. So when I get a thought that doesn't necessarily serve me, I'll go like, girl, not today. Excuse you. Like, relax. You don't need to beat yourself up. There's plenty of, trials and tribulations out there. We're not going to add suffering to our own plate by our thoughts, right? So that's a skill. Like just, I love that Chris brought up you train like an athlete. Your mindset is another thing that I would say is 99.9% of this. So Hannah, you're never in a dry spell. You're just on hiatus. You're training for the next role. And then it becomes like really fancy and fun, right? You're never unemployed. Don't let anyone tell you you're unemployed. You're on hiatus and you're working to the next thing. Because here's the fact that no one told me when I was young. You can have the most successful year of your life as an actor and be on set like 16 days of the year, right? So that's a lot of days to not be on set. So how is your life full? How are you of service? How are you connecting with humans? How are you out in the world observing people who you're going to play one day? Because I'll tell you, I was a nanny in New York and I had people who snapped their fingers at me and ordered me around, and I play those people now. And it's so much fun, you know? So I wasn't unemployed. I was just doing some character study. So I would say taking that time that you're not on set to build the mindset of like an absolute champion, right? Because you're going to get the job, Hannah, that's also going to kick your booty. Like, there's going to be a person on set that's difficult to deal with, and the time off that you were building your mindset and you were reading books that, you know, helped you reframe what felt like something negative into positive, like mindset. It's a heavy book, but Mindset by Carol Dweck is a really great book. And you can like YouTube mindset Carol Dweck and find a synopsis, because it's pretty dense. But the moment I committed to having a growth mindset was a really big moment for me, because then everything was an opportunity to grow versus like feeling, you know, like I was in a place of lack. Does that make sense? That was not a short-winded answer to your question, Anna.
I think you also, everybody has to also remember too, that being an actor is also cyclical. You know, at many points in your life, you're out of age range, you move into and out of age ranges, you know, you have physical appearance changes, your skill sets change. And depending upon what the market is looking for at that particular moment, your skill set either is or is not a usable asset to them. And remember, artists, even if you're Picasso, you're still creating something. You have to make something. And that's what storytellers do. And Lauren, for somebody like you, who is reading something someone else has said, I know a lot of very beginning actors have a difficult time trying to make that real. And I actually had a great session with the actor William Fichtner, and Bill and I actually talked a little bit about listening, keeping ears of what's going on around you. Have you found that skill to be imperative in your life as an artist?
And just to make sure I'm on the same page with you, Chris, that really, really listening and observing in the world, that being imperative.
Yes.
Big time. Big time. I mean, I like to joke that I don't know why I was like a mean girl magnet when I was a kid. And man, I play those women now. You know, and I'm like, oh, that they didn't know the favors they were doing me, right? And because I was always so fascinated, like, why would someone be so intentionally mean? I don't understand it. Because I like to joke that I'm like a human Care Bear, and I think my fascination with that got me to the place where I'm really fascinated by playing those women, right? So listening to people, observing people. Don't tell her, but I play my godmother all the time, play her all the time. I mean, like, everyone in your life is a character, and they just don't know that you're observing their behaviors and I mean, when you can find inspiration from someone who drives you up the wall, like, get curious about when someone drives you crazy. What is it? Is it they say something really evil with a little bit of a smile, or that they're really patronizing to you, right? Whatever it is, how can you pull that in, you know, and use it as inspiration rather than something that, you know, feels like an attack? So I think that's the cool thing about being an artist. Yes, Chris, always listening and always observing and stealing like an artist. So, yeah.
Well, some of the best directors in the world stole everything from Hitchcock anyway, so.
There you
All
go.
fair. Okay, so we've got a great question. I believe it's a Ralph Dowsing. Ralph, do you want to go ahead and open up your camera and ask your question?
Yes, hi. So my question was, how do you separate acting from your everyday life?
Oh, I love this. So promise me that you will be a multifaceted, multidimensional person who cares about many things, because it is very easy to become so fixated on a dream that you forget to live your life. And I am grateful for every time I've had my heart broken. I am grateful for every time I've experienced something that when I was walking through it, I wouldn't want to do it again. I wouldn't want to go back to hard times, but man, those are the moments that build you and then you draw on, right? So you can learn so much from books, you can learn so much from being in class, but you learn from living your life, right? And all the things that make you uniquely you, those are the things that are going to book you the roles that are literally being written for you, that you don't have to worry about who else is auditioning for it, that someone is going to see you and be like, that's exactly what I had in mind. Call them, like get their agent on the phone. Right. And I wish I knew that in my 20s when I didn't book a thing. So I just want to, and all that to say, when you have periods that aren't easy, it makes you really grateful for when you do get to work. Right. So to answer your question, being able to talk about things that aren't just about acting, to care about causes in the world that light you up, where you want to make a difference, to, you know, have boundaries for yourself. Like, okay, I'm sitting down to work on my craft. I'm going to class. I'm doing this, but also I'm going to make sure I have fun. I'm going to make sure I live my life so that I can draw on my experiences and enjoy all the things I'm working for. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Good. And I'm working on that every day.
I think we all are.
Right?
All right. So there you go. How about Matthew Martinez? You want to go ahead and open up your mic and ask your question?
Yeah, just to preface, I'm a makeup artist. I look a little crazy right now.
I love it.
Um,
Yes. Amazing.
So my question, my first one was, how do you go about finding like representation in the beginning of your career, or like people who you want to work with and that you feel like will serve you well also?
Absolutely. Great question. So I will say the way I found representation in the past has been through showcases, like whether I was at a school or, you know, through organizations that might do casting director workshops or agent panels. And what I would say is, when you do those things, going into it to learn, not with like, okay, I got to find the thing, I got to find the result, because it's a little bit like just how not every friend is for you, not every partnership is going to be for you. So when you go into those meetings, being willing to listen and also make sure that you know who you are, and that you're interviewing the agent as well, like with so much respect and reverence for what they do, right? But making sure they see you as an artist is important. So, you know, I think there's just a certain element of pounding the pavement to get in front of people who might be able to represent you. And again, showcases, and then different acting schools that might provide opportunities like that. But I hope that answers your question. Is that helpful, Matthew?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Amazing. And your makeup's amazing.
Thank you.
And we have an amazing, this, I don't think I've actually ever had this question before, but I think it's a great one and I think it deserves being answered. This is Cheyenne. I hope I get this last name correct. Philocity?
Philotet, close enough. You got
That's
the answer.
amazing. Diane, you and I can bond over how people pronounce our names.
Yes, people mess it up a lot.
Yeah, it's a topic of conversation, right? It's a great icebreaker.
But my question for you is, would you say playing a role that you may never be in real life change your perspective on things?
I love this question so much. So I play a lot of hateful people. And I think especially in this moment in time, what changed for me is sometimes we think hate and ignorance is just very loud, right? And I think there's something equally scary about it being very quiet and insidious and said with a smile as if it's not a big deal. So it was, particularly with Jazzman, it was important to me to represent that person who doesn't think they're saying anything wrong, right? So that has really changed how I see villains, because there's something, you know, the villain isn't always broadcasting, right? That they're evil. And sometimes it's really scary. So I don't know if, and why I'll go off on a little tangent. I'm sure you guys have heard, if you're playing drunk in a scene, you actually want to play against being drunk, right? Because we're not walking around in the world, if, you know, and if and when you drink when you're much older, you are actually trying to hold it together, right? Like, just like when you're when you're emotional, you're trying not to cry. I think something similar, like not playing evil is important, because it can sometimes hit the audience over the head with like, this is the bad guy and and it makes it very obvious. So that's something I'm glad you asked that question. I've become really fascinated with how can people be quietly evil and not be scary, because sometimes we see that in the world, and someone might need to see themselves reflected in that, right? I hope that answers your question. I love to go on a tangent.
You answered it to the T. Thank you so
I
much.
love that question though. Thank you.
And I want to just quickly interrupt. I'd like to talk a little bit more. We haven't spoken about a new series you have coming out with Netflix. This is called Florida Man. Who was the producer on this?
Oh, this was Aggregate Films. So that was Jason Bateman, and yeah, his production company.
Wow. And what's the plot of this? How are you involved? Tell us a little bit about this project.
There's debauchery in Florida, as there often is. I lived in Florida as a child, so I can say that with confidence. There's debauchery in Florida and some nefarious behavior. There's some criminal activity going on, and I play a newscaster who gets wind of it and wants to leverage it as an opportunity to further her career. So I play a very ambitious, calculated woman.
Outstanding. All right, let's go straight to another student question. I think this is as Aklisha Lewis. I know I pronounced that incorrectly.
Yes, it's a cliche. It's
Cliche,
okay.
Yeah, nice.
My question is, do you see yourself acting in more Lifetime movies, and like how did those roles help you grow as an actress? By the way, I love all your Lifetime movies. I watch them all the time.
Oh, Aklisha, I love you. Thank you. That's so kind of you. And I would love to do more Lifetime movies. So I'm so glad you asked this question, because just like anything, right? Like someone might be a little bit snooty about labels, right? They might only want to wear designer things. Sometimes people can be a little snooty about networks. And I wish that wasn't the case, because those films were a training ground that I mean, I am so grateful for those opportunities, because with Lifetime, you're not just, going through a hard time. You're going through a hard time and you're stealing a baby, So like you're really going through it. And to really take any material you're given and say, okay, how do I bring truth to this? How do I elevate even the most extreme of stories? And Aklisha, what I'll tell you is doing that, because I'm a nerd, I'll do my research. I'm like, people who steal babies, this couldn't be a real story. And those stories happen. Like the things that you see in Lifetime movies, the stories came from somewhere. So I get really excited to say, okay, how can I give the most truthful, honest performance here, and honor the genre, and honor that like there's a fan base for those films that blows me away. People get so excited for Lifetime movies. So if anyone ever gets, you don't just start out going to auditioning for HBO, right? Like you have to really get your chops. And I think for anyone who wants to do film, who wants to do television, those Lifetime films teach you so much about, arc and really crafting a character. So thank you. I'm so honored that you watched the movies. Thank you, Felicia.
Thank you for answering my question.
Of course. Great question.
And Destiny Thomas. Destiny, you want to go ahead and open up your mic and ask your question?
So I had two, but I'm going to go with this one. How does it make you feel when you're acting and you get to escape the reality and be someone other than yourself without all of your personal problems?
Ooh. When I'm acting, I feel most alive. And I also feel like nothing about me is an accident. So, I saw Hope, as Destiny was asking this question, asked about words of affirmation for people with social anxiety, right? So whether it's social anxiety or, feeling like you don't fit in, or feeling any kind of darkness or any kind of adversity, anything you walk through as an actor is something you're going to draw on in the future, right? So I think while it's the thing that makes me feel most alive and that I love with my whole heart, it allows me to escape while feeling like nothing I've been through is an accident. Does that make sense, Destiny?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great to be able to say, okay, I went through things for a reason. And yeah, great question.
Thank you.
All right. And Melanie Riconco. Melanie, you want to go ahead and open up your camera and ask your question?
So I have two questions, but because like for the school, I have to take like a videotape of a monologue, but I don't know like how to find a monologue that represents my type. Because I'm still confused on that.
Great. So love this question. Melanie, one of the things I love to do is to watch film and television. And if there's a role that I think, ooh, I could play that, literally transcribe it. So like I'll stop and start and type it up and then work on that monologue. So the great news as part of our homework as actors is watching a lot of film and television. So I would watch shows that you could see yourself in that world, type up a monologue and work on it. You can read plays, you can read scripts, absolutely. But there's something about seeing a world that you fit into that working on that material, I think the odds of someone else working on it are very slim too, right? So that's an added bonus. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you.
Great, of course.
And
And
it
you
looks like
said,
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
was there a second part to that question?
No, but there was I also had a question on like because some of us like to remember lines. Like
Oh,
were there
great.
any tips on to like remember lines for like any shows or movies for like future
Great
scripts?
question. So it's a muscle. So literally I'll use an app called Off Book where I'll record the lines. I'll listen to it. I'll say it aloud. I'll take my dogs for a walk and be like saying it. Someone doesn't know if I'm on the phone or not. I'll read it out loud at home a ton. And then I have a friend that I jump on Zoom with and we'll practice our lines together. So for me personally, it's repetition and it's a muscle that gets stronger and stronger. And, I've heard people say they can read something 3 times and they're off book. So everybody's different. Some people have photographic memories. Some people just retain, very easily. I'm someone who needs to drill it. So I hope that helps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do. Thank you.
great app. I'll put that in.
And Hope, you have a great question. It's the last question that you had just typed in regards to your family. And I'm quite sure a lot of young artists are dealing with this. Hope, do you want to go ahead and open up your mic and ask your question? Hope, are you there?
Yeah, sorry, I got a message and it like.
No worries.
Okay, so a lot of the time I have my parents telling me that I'm not going to make it that far in the industry because like it's like a really hard industry to get into. What would your tips be on like dealing with that?
Oof, I love this question, Hope. And first of all, I want to say to anyone who's experienced that, I'm sorry. And that I don't want to speak for anyone's families, but it comes from such a place of love, right? And that's the thing we have to remind ourselves is everybody wants the best for us. And they're just who loves us for the most part, right? Like people in our world who we know and love and trust want the best for us. So they want to protect us. And I am someone who had my parental figures say things that were not helpful and not kind while I love my family with my whole heart under the guise of support that now they can look back on and be like, oh, I'm sorry that I said that, right? So I just want to say to anyone who's able to walk forward in a dream when they don't have all the support in the world necessarily, you're really brave. You're really incredible. My dog is agreeing. If you can't hear that, my dog agrees. Hi, baby. And remembering that like everybody is doing the best they can with what they've got, right? So having compassion for our parents if they're not supportive. And I still come up to it today. Like my family last week said, "Oh, I wish you were in that film more." And I'm like, well, I was really proud of that, you know? So it never goes away. We just get better at dealing with it, whether it's friends or family. But that unshakable belief in yourself to say, you know what, you might have the perception that things are really hard and that it's not going to work out. I know what I believe to be true. And I'm going to keep taking action, believing in abundance, having faith, believing in myself. And that's an incredible foundation for the rest of your life, Hope. Like really having that belief in yourself is a skill that most adults don't have. So that you can, because I mean, it'll happen to me. Last week, I had a director speak to me in a very unkind way. And I got to say internally, that's not about me. Great. I'm going to hit my mark and do my job because I have an unshakable belief in myself that resulted from years of people telling me I wasn't this, I wasn't that, I wasn't this, I wasn't that, and I'd never make it. So for what it's worth, all of that, if you can reframe it and say, great, I'm not here for the feedback from, you know, people who don't believe in abundance. I know they mean well. I love them with my whole heart. I'm going to keep moving forward and knowing that they just want me to be happy and healthy, right? Because I don't think if you're, I mean, and I don't want to speak for anyone's families, but if everyone knew it was all going to work out and we were going to be okay and safe and happy and fed, they'd be like, go do whatever you want. Great. It's just people wanting to protect us, right? So you hope, and everyone else on here knows that you have the unshakable faith in yourself to keep moving forward, to always figure it out, because we always do. We just keep going, we figure it out, we get the side hustles, we figure out all the things, right? And you just keep moving forward. Does that help?
Yeah.
Good. And please know it comes from love. It comes like, that's, I mean, so I hope, yeah. I'm sorry. And you're really brave to keep moving forward in the face of it.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
All right. So with that being said, this draws us to a close. Now, what I'd like to ask is one final question for all of the next generation actors that are here. If there's one piece of advice that you could have received before you chose to get into this business that was so important that you know ahead of time, what advice was that? And is that the same advice that you would give the next generation?
Ooh, Chris with the questions, it's so good. So I did not get this advice, but it would be my advice for all of you in the next generation, that smooth sailing doesn't make an incredible sailor, right? So everything that is in your path, that is ahead of you, that you can't see yet, is conditioning you for your destiny. And if that's the lens through which you see it, you're unstoppable. Because then lack of kindness, or that, you know, that job didn't work out and oh, that thing fell through, and it never ends. You will book the biggest job of your life and then the movie won't be getting made. But if you know who you are, you know your foundation is that unshakable faith in yourself and wanting to be a light in the world. And I'm not giving you a short-winded answer, Chris, I'm sorry, but if it's bigger than you, if you want to be a force for good, if you want to give back, if you want to make a difference in people's lives, then anything bigger than us wants that to work out. So like, that's part of that unshakable faith, right? If it's not just about you and it's not about being famous and being rich and successful, whatever that means, if it's about being a force for good and being an artist, then you don't have to worry.
Absolute words of wisdom. I hope everybody learned a little something. And I always like to close these with a very specific phrase that I like to talk about. As I mentioned earlier, Jack Lemmon was my idol growing up. as an actor. And Jack was a huge avid on teaching next generation actors. And he had a motto at the end of each one of his classes. He would ask each of his students, when you become successful in this business, you then become obliged to send the elevator of knowledge back down to the next generation. So Lauren, on behalf of myself, the students, the faculty, and the alumni here at AMDA, thank you very much for sending the elevator back down.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a joy, and I'm just so proud and inspired of all of you. And I just wish you all the best. I wish you all the joy. Enjoy every moment, and then you send the elevator back down.
Excuse
So
me.
much, Jen.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Hi. I was wondering, how would I go about finding an agent?
So I would definitely suggest, we're showcases and organizations that, whether they do casting director workshops or panels that can get you in front of agents, really taking those as class to learn from them would be a great first step. Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Good luck.
All right. Thank you guys, everybody, so much for spending a little bit of your journey with us. And thank you so much for spending some of your journey with us as well, Lauren. Have a
Thank you.
wonderful evening, everybody. Have a great week. We'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye, everyone.